After my last video expressing my love towards one of the most universally hated pieces of media of all time, I realized that I like expressing terrible opinions, and I decided to get into politics. I've had to debate all kinds of topics that are on the minds of my constituents, such as gun laws, equality, and whether or not the Werehog ruined Sonic Unleashed. So it turns out, expressing positive opinions about the Werehog is political suicide. I need a new hobby now, something that is controversial yet fulfilling. Crash test dummy at this time of the month? I don't know. Anyway, here are my totally uncontroversial thoughts on Sonic Unleashed. Just like the Sonic 06 video, I'll be aiming to redefine how much you believe bias can affect an objective analysis, but luckily, for the sake of my childhood, I know that there's a lot less to tear this game apart for. Also, too much negativity is bad for the soul. So what's it about? Okay, now fix it. Following the Sonic game standard, Sonic Unleashed does not have a particularly complicated plot. Eggman breaks the planet by unleashing this big bad monster guy named Dark Gaia, drains all the Chaos Emeralds of their power, and makes Sonic turn into the Werehog, but only at night, and then Sonic must fix it. Accompanying him is this thing named Chip because Sonic landed on his head and he feels guilty for giving him amnesia. After meeting up with Tails and flying to Fransons, you find out that Eggman kidnapped this guy called Professor Pickle and subjected him to subpar sandwiches. After rescuing him, you're given the task of going around the world, putting powerless Chaos Emeralds in each of these Gaia temples located around the world, which in turn places each continent back in its original position. After putting most of the world back together, you travel to Eggman's magnum opus, Eggman Land, which is the longest level in the game and quite possibly in the series, at least to my immediate knowledge. I think it's also pretty cool that we get to see Eggman's ego cranked up to the max with this project of his, since the only other time we really get to see his creativity this exaggerated would be in Sonic Colors about 3 years later. After putting the last piece of the planet into place, you have a final fight with Eggman as you fall to the center of the Earth, and upon arrival you encounter the big bad monster guy from the beginning of the game, Dark Gaia. It is at this point that Chip decides to become a Transformer and fight him, and after an initial scuffle, Sonic becomes Supersonic and does his thing. Roll the credits. Sonic Unleashed gameplay revolves around the night and day mechanic. By day, Sonic is his normal self, running through various terrain around the world as fast as he can. Unleashed did a lot for paving the way to what will become known as the boost formula, which, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term, is basically the game design philosophy of you hold X to boost and go fast and win. Unleashed success with this formula is attributed to its large open spaces that you have to maneuver Sonic around and that you can actually explore, and the tight controls of this game allow you to do that quite nicely with the aforementioned boost and drifting and sidestepping. The controls also give you a good sense of control and speed as you quickly and constantly have to adjust your direction and trajectory. An example of failing the boost formula can be found in Sonic Forces. In Forces, the game plays itself like Subway Surfers while you check your phone for the 1000th time today. But as much as I'd like to have a popular opinion and complain about how much of a failure Sonic Forces was, let's go to another one of my hot takes. I like the Werehog. Yeah, fair enough. I understand why people dislike the Werehog half of this game. No, not you. Not yet. I've seen arguments like, it's not fast, so it's not Sonic, and that's true, the Werehog isn't fast, but I don't entirely believe that he isn't Sonic. As this game established the 3D boost formula for the day stages, it abandoned the smaller scale, more precise platforming style of the gameplay we saw in games like the Adventure series and in 06, and opted for bigger maps that you rush into where you don't stay in one area for too long. Because that kind of platforming was no longer reasonable to have when Sonic would be moving so quickly, Sonic Team could try out something new while trying to bring that platforming back. Then there's the argument of, Sonic isn't a beat-em-up, what is he doing? And to that I respond with, it was the early 2000s, what wasn't Sonic doing? Yeah, sure, it's not the same as every Sonic game before it, but I don't see that as an inherent problem with it, it's just fun in a different way. While the combat isn't particularly deep, it's really satisfying to toy around with all the different combos you get as you progress through the game and experiment with what works best against each enemy. Speaking of progress, this game has experience points which you can gain and put into a skill tree. While Day Sonic has a little bit of stuff you can improve with experience, the Werehog has a nice selection of things you can improve as you see fit. The Werehog also feels good to control for the most part. He gets new combos that really work better for movement even if they're advertised as attacks. His stretchy arms make for some surprisingly fun platforming that wouldn't really work without them. I believe that, for what it's worth, the Werehog is a fun addition to this series, and the main negative sentiments towards this gameplay style only come from it not being fast in a Sonic game. If it helps, the Werehog levels are really just knack with emphasized jumping. Quite frankly, I think this game has aged quite well visually. If it were to be re-released in today's game market, all I think it really needs is some touch-ups to its textures and UI and to up the FPS cap for modern consoles and PCs, and I think it would be the best looking Sonic game so far. The scenery is colorful and detailed, and it adds to the world adventure vibe that this game is trying to sell. Each level's visual design lends itself well to the day and night aesthetic, a standout in my opinion being Skyscraper Scramper at night, which does a good job emulating the setting of New York at night. Even though the level design is quite linear, it still feels like you get to explore the world as you progress through the game. Unlike Sonic 06, Unleashed takes a less realistic approach to its character designs, in a way that makes Sonic and Tails and Eggman look much more natural among the people that they interact with. Overall, while not something to write home about, the visuals this game provides do what they are meant to and well. Oh yeah, and the pre-rendered cutscenes. Yeah, they're good. I could describe why, but I refuse. Look at this! Where did this go? I missed this. And there's the music. Once again, following the pattern of early 2000s Sonic games, Unleashed has an OST good enough to sell the game independently of the game itself. Each piece of OST reaffirms the two major motifs that are the core of this game's identity, being a globe-trotting adventure and the difference between night and day. While the night and day OST for each country share the same instruments for the most part, the day levels have a higher tempo and more energy to reflect the fast gameplay of the day levels, while the night levels slow it down and assist in creating a calmer mood. Except for this drunk uncle that likes interjecting his opinions every 3 minutes whether you ask or not. It's really a shame that they went so hard on making good OST for the night levels only to force you to listen to this battle theme half the time. That's not to say that the battle theme doesn't do its job though, it's just that it also makes you resent it for blocking out the music you actually want to hear. Aside from the battle theme, I think that the OST in this game contributes to making it a standout title within a series that's known for having good OST and not much else. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Oh no, I forgot the Wii and PS2 version. Well, let's get that out of the way, I guess. Along with the version that came out for the Xbox 360 and PS3, there was a downscaled version released for the Wii and PS2, and it's fine. The gameplay and movement becomes a lot more finicky due to hardware limitations and trying to make the Wiimote make sense. There are quite a few differences to the other version that make it an interesting alternate version of Sonic Unleashed, however. While both versions have 2 hub worlds in each country, one being to talk to people in and another to select levels, the Wii version takes the visual novel approach in the social hub world, and while I prefer being able to walk around, I think this is an interesting way to deal with the hardware limitations. Medals are given out by getting a higher rank at the end of the level, as opposed to having to search them out by going off of the beaten trail. This mode of progression makes it a lot less difficult to get stuck in, but I also think that searching for the Sun and Moon medals in the other version has its charm, so I can't really call either of these better or worse than the other. Another interesting change is choosing to segment the night levels into smaller ones as opposed to one long level in the 360 PS3 version. I don't really know if that changes much at all considering it's still a long level in the end, but it's still fascinating nonetheless. Then there's what it does objectively worse. Missouri is reduced to a single boss fight and has no night or day levels at all, and Empire City got Thanos snapped entirely. The day stages feel emptier to traverse as the level of detail is reduced, the level design itself in general is simple, but it's all different to what's in the other version, so at its worst it's just more new content. This version is definitely not the definitive edition, but it's neat to see how Sonic Team tried to preserve the spirit of Unleashed on inferior hardware. I like Unleashed a lot. Out of the Boost Trilogy games being Unleashed, Generations, and Forces, Unleashed is my favorite because of how open the level design is despite never making you feel like you're lost. I feel like the Werehog is a fun change of pace that makes for some interesting platforming gameplay and satisfying beat-em-up action. The simple plot, while cheesy, grounds the game by not overcomplicating its progression. For a game from 2008, it looks pretty good, and it has what I would say some of the best art direction in a Sonic game. The UI is a little dated, but it functions well. I give Sonic Unleashed a solid 8 out of 10. And while I'm at it, I'll give the Wii and PS2 version a 6 out of 10, as at its core, it's the same game but watered down to be played on weaker hardware. After trying to come up with a career for myself based on letting people down and making them upset with my poor choices, I decided to try to be more consistent with my uploads, and that's why I'm going to get another video out by the next 2 weeks, about this game. It's 2021 now, so the Persona embargo is over. And after that, maybe I'll do something else, something new entirely, something even more sinister. I'll talk about why I raised Dean Stay Night from a 4 to a 6 on Mal.